Hey, Bonavista Baptist kids and friends that are joining us today. It's Kira, Pastor Scott, and of course our friend Steve. One day a man came to Jesus and he said, "Jesus, I want you to tell my brother to give me some of his money." And Jesus said, "I don't want to have anything to do with that situation. But I'll tell you what, you have to be really careful about being greedy, because life is not about getting more and more stuff." Then Jesus told a really interesting story. He said there was a farmer, and this farmer had lots of land, and he had lots of crops, and he had lots of grain. And one day the farmer said to himself, "You know what I need to do? I need to tear down all my old barns. I need to build bigger barns and stuff them full of all the grain I have. And when I do that, I can sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of my life because I'll have so much stuff." Unfortunately, in the story, the farmer didn't live long enough to enjoy all of his stuff. The point of the story that Jesus was trying to tell is that we have to make sure we focus on the right things in our lives first, and then all the other things that God has for us will be given to us as we need it. So we have a little experiment to do with you today, and Kira's going to help me out. We're going to pretend that this jar is like your life, and this macaroni represents all the kinds of things that we need and the kinds of things that we want, the stuff. So we're going to try and fit all the macaroni and this ball into this jar. Let's go ahead and see how it works. So there's all the macaroni in. There's not a lot of room left. And now we're going to put this ball in, and look, it doesn't work. Kira, what should we do?
Let's try something different. Let's take everything out and put this ball that represents God first.
Okay, let's do that. So Kira's going to carefully empty the macaroni all the way back in. And let's try and see, because it's the same things. Let's put the ball that represents God in first, and then the macaroni in second, and see what happens. Check it out. Look at that. We put the same amount of stuff in the first time and the second time, but the second time we put the ball in first, and that ball represents God. And the lesson is this. Jesus says when we put God first, then all the other things will be added to us as well. We'll be able to fit the other things that God wants for us in our lives. In fact, at the very end of the passage, Jesus says this: "Seek first God's kingdom, and all these things will be given to you as well." That's pretty amazing. Kira, where can they find out more about this story?
Luke chapter 12, verses 16 to 34.
And so after you read that with your parents, ask them what they learned from the story today. And then you can download some of the sheets and do some of the activities and maybe even try this experiment at home. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's Kira and Pastor Scott and Steve the Plant saying,
See you next week.